The Golden Grimm by Neon Zangetsu, Chapter 8. Who do you trust? My boy, your gift could help save the world or destroy it. I can't make that decision for you. No one can. In the end, you will have to choose. Go on now. Change the world as I could not. Merlot. Who do you trust? Trust, Naruto found, was a precious resource. Too much and others take you for granted. Too little and you won't be able to get by in this world. Believe in everyone and sooner or later you'll be taken for a fool. But the reverse also applies. When you have faith in no one but yourself, you become hardened, jaded, cut off from the world at large. In the end, it was all about balance, learning to listen to others as much as oneself and make your judgment from there. Finding balance with oneself, one's world, was the only way to live. But right now, this doesn't feel very balanced. Bah! Slapped his back, nearly sending him stumbling forward. You worry too much. You're doing great. And you not enough. Naruto didn't open his eyes, if only because doing so meant he might lose control over the Grimm he was currently commanding. Don't do that again. He shot a scowl her way all the same, though his closed eyes couldn't properly convey his anger. I need to focus, and that hit hurt. A low growl pierced the air, promising pain. Do that to him again, and your arm comes off. Naruto felt the ghost of a smile touch his lips. No biting, Rim. These are our guests. He heard her huff. Not even a little nibble? Mara gulped. She's joking, right? No. 3 hours after the operative's arrival, they had retired to a worn outcrop of a building. The better to direct his efforts, Rim had returned shortly thereafter, thankfully in her human form, to guard him, while Alpha saw to a sleeping Lisa. It gave him time to focus. He needed to concentrate here, marshal his flapping focus while he could to make a perimeter. He would not let anyone sneak up on him again. If the Grimm were watching in every direction, both earth and the sky alike, then they wouldn't be taken by surprise the second time. He refused. I'll be damned. Mara whistled a ways behind him. You really can control them. Naruto bit back a sigh. I thought that went without saying. Of course, Elm didn't let that go. She never did. I didn't mean to hurt you. He heard the frown in her voice. You really don't have aura? Never had. He shrugged, pushing down the sting of regret. I've asked people to try unlocking it before. They only drained theirs. Her silence proved telling. He was sure Elm didn't believe him. Why would she? Everyone had aura in some form or another, awakened or otherwise. It was an unwritten rule of this world. In most cases, it was merely a matter of finding someone to unlock it, or bearing that, releasing it under great stress. And yet for all that, Naruto knew he lacked aura, no magical force field to protect him, no precious barrier between life and death, and certainly no semblance, only this uncanny ability. He was strong, but not in the traditional sense of a huntsman or huntress. His strength came from other sources. You're welcome to try. If you don't believe me, he spoke into the void that stretched between them. Go ahead, it won't work. Think I'll take you up on that? He felt her hand settle on the back of his shoulders, heard her mutter the words, something about strength and resolve. They washed over him in a soothing wave with her aura, to no avail. His own didn't spark, didn't ignite beneath hers. On the contrary, Naruto swallowed it whole, like pouring light into a black hole. So too was the aura she pushed into him, devoured. Something deep inside him latched onto the link between the two of them, and guzzled greedily, growing stronger with each passing moment. He shivered. Stop! Rasped. Whoa! Blue eyes snapped open, pupils gone slitted, irises glowing a baleful red. He felt not quite full, but sated, as if he'd gone days without eating, only to be offered a veritable feast. And yet, some dark part of him hungered for more. He'd been running on empty. How had he missed that? She needed to stop. A groan tore out of him. Stop! Mara gasped. Let him go! Naruto heard other words, but everything was muffled, as if he'd taken a deep plunge underwater. All the while, Amzora continued to pour into him, revitalizing what he'd lost. It was so tempting to hold the connection open, to drain her dry. He was so very tired. Wasn't he owed this? A rest? A reprieve? No! With a snarl, he shoved the urge down and wrenched his body to one side, both freeing himself from her grasp, shattering the link. The hammer-wielding warrior stumbled back half a step. Eyes wide, he raised a hand after her. I didn't mean to. Mara shoved him into a wall. What the hell was that? I told her to stop. This close he could taste his fear, feel it as the man gripped him by the collar. She didn't listen. He could see his eyes in the old man's gaze, burning bright red. Now let go. Like hell I will. Rim! A casual backhand swatted the faunus in the ribs, flinging him into his partner. Elm caught him righted herself with an effort. Naruto flicked a gaze their way. He couldn't taste her terror, but it was muted, lesser, damped by the knowledge that he hadn't meant to harm her. With one arm, she reached behind her back. Naruto tensed, half expecting her to take a swing at him to ruin the fragile trust they've built. She dropped her weapon at his feet, producing a harsh clang. You were draining my aura. It wasn't an accusation, merely a statement. How did you do that? I was. Here at last he felt the faintest touch of guilt. It's not something I can control. It only works when someone willingly pushes it into me. He flexed his fingers, humming a little at the strength. Her strength, even now, coursing through him. Power old and familiar. Strength like he'd had in his last life. The life Marlot insisted he'd had. The life he could barely remember. I'm sorry. I did tell you to stop. It's fine. I'll survive, she muttered, thumbing her chin. That's not a semblance, then. Different from the Grimm thing, too. Maybe it's hereditary. Does it matter? Mara was all but beside himself. He's a freak. We need to leave. Naruto scoffed. You're welcome to do so. Hell if I know. Drawn by the chaos, a lone beowulf padded by them, tongue lolling out its mouth like an affectionate puppy. Without a second thought, Naruto reached out to scratch its ears. The beast stopped what it was doing at once and plopped down on its hindquarters. Its right leg began to twitch. Naruto smiled fondly at the noises it gave, but made no effort to convert it, only to give it a nudge. His fingers scraped the underside of its chin before sending it off with the rest. But I have work to do. When his gaze found them again, it was pure steel. With or without you, Rim moved to flank him. Mara and Elm exchanged a tense glance. In the end, they seemed to come to an accord. If it's all the same to you, Elm managed, I think we'll stay. This is our mission. Speak for yourself, Mero muttered blankly. Naruto favored him with a bleak look. Of course, the faunus was terribly twitchy about all this, as well he should be. Anyone in their right mind would. His control over the Grimm wasn't absolute. He could order them away, but they would always return within an hour. Nudge them and run the risk of losing control. Even the act of dominating them didn't sit right with him, not only because of the headaches it caused him, but the conundrum that split his soul. These were living creatures. They had wills of their own, no matter what some might say. He'd seen it firsthand. Ordering them about like a pack of dogs just rubbed him the wrong way, but it was necessary. For now, the perimeter only need last long enough until they were all away from here. He turned to find Elm lingering, looking after the Beowulf. Any chance you could get one of those things on a bullhead? Realization dawned, and it wasn't a pleasant one for Naruto. He felt a hackles rise on the back of his neck. You want me to give you a Grimm? His lips pursed in a thin line. I still haven't decided if I'm going with you. Mero crossed his arms. Not like you have anywhere else to go. You're really not making a very good case for yourself right now, doggo. Mero opened his mouth to protest, but Elm, ever the mediator, intervened before he could. Take a walk around the perimeter, kid. The faunus brindled, tail thrashing. Elm, you can't be serious. I'm not leaving you alone with him. I'll be fine. She planted a palm between his shoulders and shoved. Take a walk. Meryl flicked a baleful look at her, but faced with her silent fury and Rim's toothy smile, his resolve wilted. Naruto winced as the operative accusingly gazed, sought him out once more. His hands balled into fists at his side, but with a less than pleasant curse he did as he was ordered, ripping the weapon from his back and stalking away. What did I do? I'm sorry about him, Elm grimaced. A tan hand arose to scratch the back of her head. Marrow means well. Really, he does. He's just a bit too enthusiastic sometimes. Easy for you to say. Naruto looked away. Why defend me in front of him? You're trying to win my trust or something? No, she hummed. I just think you're a good person. Rim tilted her head. Good? Naruto bit his lip, but it was too late. A harsh bark of laughter ripped out of him as he bent double, clutching at his sides. Good. Naruto didn't consider himself a good person. He hadn't for quite some time now. The city had fallen because of him. His hubris here had doomed many. He'd reunited Ruby and Yang with their mother, sure, but that was a point in his favor. But in truth, he just wanted to be left alone, to live in peace. But Ospin wouldn't allow him that, and so he must persevere. That meant sticking with Lisa to reveal the truth. A good deed does not wash out the bad, nor the bad the good. And yet, for all that, Elm believed he was just that good. It was just so funny that it hurt. If it's Grimm you're after, he straightened, we don't need one. Alpha and Rim are more than enough. We, a hopeful smile dawned on her face. Does that mean you're considering our offer? Only considering. He held up a finger even as her smile broadened. Naruto sighed, his gaze straight to Inarsa, the great giant that had been following him around for some days now, the very same beast who hadn't strayed far from his side, sensing the weight of his regard. The great bear looked up, it tilted its head to one side to regard him with a questioning whine. Naruto pinched the bridge of his nose. This went beyond reckless. But I have an idea. They can certainly come, but many wouldn't believe your story. She offered him a whining grin. Best to have proof. No? Rim had a displeased noise and bared her fangs anew. Naruto gestured for her to calm at once more. No one here knew she could flit between forms as she pleased. Best to keep that card up his sleeve until the last possible moment. He still wasn't sure why she could. Even Alpha had no such ability, yet the fact remained. Maybe it had something to do with her being an ancient Grimm, not an elder, but ancient. He was going to need a chart for one of these days. Normal, major, great, elder, followed by ancient. If there were other categories out there, he was afraid to find them. He wasn't sure what category Summer was. She'd clearly been a person before someone melded her with that Grimm, and the hound had been far from normal. Major then? Did that make Alpha a greater? He could feel a migraine coming on. If it's proof you're after, Lisa's voice saved him, and he turned to see the bedraggled reporter stumbling up, supported by Alpha. She brandished her scroll like a flail. I have all the proof you need. Alm's eye sparked. You have footage of a transformation? Let me see. Lisa darted back with surprising speed for a civilian. You'll see it when I blow this story wide open. She lost said respect when she ducked behind him and Alpha for cover. Not before. Planted one hand on her hip. You do realize I could just take it from you? No? You could, she sang, but I don't think my associate would like that. Every Grimm glowered at them as one mind and body. Fair enough. Winced and steered the subject to safer waters. So, am I to understand you've only converted 2? 3, technically. Naruto jabbed his shoulder happy for the chance of peace. 4, if you count the little guy. Blinked, somewhat taken aback. Little guy? Naruto whistled sharply. Casper popped out of his shoulder and waved its claws at her. At full size, the geist must have been intimidating. As it was, its voice was a mere shriek. Any sane individual would have jolted back with a shriek, crying out about a ghost and goblins. Not Elm. She merely blinked. Well, aren't you just precious? She edged closer. May I? Naruto shrugged. Sure, go ahead. She poked the miniature geist with one finger. Casper hissed and flailed his claws at her. It's like a baby Grimm, the operative cooed happily. Is this one a person too? Lisa scoffed. Alpha and Rim made angry noises. Frowned at them. Was it something I said? Naruto, meanwhile, found himself somewhat taken aback by her line of questioning. Casper rolled his shoulders in a shrug. Truth be told, he didn't know. The little ghost had been one of the very first Grimm he'd met when his ability had awakened. It was larger then, though it had since shrunk itself to fit in his body. He managed to not tame because this wasn't really taming them at all. Convince? Was that the right word? Help? Soothe? Maybe the last one fit best. Some grim whisper he was. If there really was a person in that mask, they weren't keen to reveal themselves, and maybe that was a good thing. He had his hands full already. He settled for a shrug. If that's all, I really need to rest. Everyone jumped as a shrill sound of a ringing scroll pierced the dead city. Sorry, Elm flailed in her pocket. That's mine. Just a second. Lisa balked at her. How in the hell are you getting reception out here? Connections. The operative tutted, snatching it up. Yes, hello. I'm here, sir. Wait, now. Her brow furrowed. No, sir. I'm not questioning your orders, but is that wise? Naruto heard a harsh negative. Nothing more. Yes, sir. Wilted, looking every bit a naughty child, with their hands caught in the proverbial cookie jar. In the same moment, she held out her scroll at him. Our superior wants to speak with you. Naruto made a face. Who? She hummed. General James Ironwood. Lisa went white as a sheet. Best answer that. He probably should. Trembling hands picked up the scroll and pushed it to his ear. Hello. A low baritone voice came through. Might you be Naruto? I am. Then, on behalf of Atlas, I'd like to apologize for the conduct of my associate, Ospen. He meant Ospen. He means well, but I believe he's overreached himself this time. That was cheap. Action spoke louder than words. His brow forward. Could say the same about you. You could. The man, Ironwood, adopted a conciliatory tone from the start. It didn't do much, but he supposed the sentiment counted for something. But unlike him, I am not your enemy. His voice did not waver. That much I can promise you. You've nothing to fear from me. I simply believe your gift should be used, cultivated. Is that not what you want? What I want, the scroll creaked in his grasp, is everyone to stop hunting me. And Marrow are here to protect you, not hunt you. Sure, by sending two ace operatives after us, Lisa planted a fist on her hip. Could have fooled me. I understand your concerns. His words ironed out. Rest assured, Elm and Marrow are an extension of my will. Use them as you see fit. It was almost too good to be true. And what do you get out of this? Hope. His reply was sincere, earnest even, that you might use your gifts for the good of mankind. The silence was telling. I am not here to force you into anything. Ironwood hasted on at a brisk pace. I ask only that you consider the options before you, lest you act recklessly. Ospen has already put out a warrant for your arrest. Vel is close to you. I suspect Mistral will soon be as well. Lionheart has ever been his man, and Menandry isn't likely to take kindly to a human unless you have friends in Vacuo. Naruto scoffed. No one likes Vacuo. There you have it, James stuttered. My offer is genuine. I do not ask for your trust, for trust must be earned, but I am on your side. Has already said the words, but he coughed once into the receiver, clearing his throat. I'll say them again. We're still prepared to offer you sanctuary in return for your assistance. Naruto pinched the brow of his nose. You're up to something. I am not. Ironwood's response proved instant. I ask only that you, a bolt of something ripped the scroll from his hand, shattering it on the spot. He spun, palms stinging. Hey! What he saw there stole his breath away. My! A new voice groaned. This is all very touching, but I'm afraid I must interrupt. There was a woman there, only yards away, standing among the Grimm, a pale-skinned beauty with ashen hair clad in robes of darkened ebony. Here, her eyes were pure balefire, red against black, set in a scarlet-veined face that regarded him instantly. She tilted her head and smiled, not at the others. No. Her smile was for him alone. It was not a pleasant smile. There were others behind her, but he couldn't look past her. He didn't dare take his eyes off her for a moment. Our long-awaited meeting has come at last. Her words were sin itself. You're everything I hoped for and more. She touched a finger to her cheek. I believe you lost your dog, by the way. Only then did he see the burnt, battered, broken body she was dragging behind her. She cast it forward. It struck the ground with a groan, bounced once, then skidded to a halt at their feet. Against his better judgment, Naruto found himself looking down. He soon wished he hadn't. Fingers of ice crawled down his spine. He recognized them. Elm hissed out a breath. Marrow! Was he yours then? The woman tutted. My apologies. He attacked first. I was forced to defend myself. Naruto's throat closed. They hadn't heard a damn thing. Just who was she? Her gaze slipped past him, eyeing his motley crew of allies. Curious, she remarked. Grim, and yet not grim, Casper squeaked and retreated into his shoulder with an audible plop. Naruto almost found himself wishing he could do the same. Instead, he was forced to stand his ground as Lisa shrank back behind him. As Elm reached for her hammer, behind him Alpha and Rim physically recoiled as though they'd been struck, and so he stepped before them instead. He was going to regret this, every bit of it. He just knew it. But what choice did he have? Who are you? Dear boy, the intruder offered him a saccharine smile. Don't you know? She spread her arms wide, and the very shadows lengthened. I am Salem. Previews. He'd been a fool. He had stayed. He painted a target on his back. No, all of their backs. Are you one of mine? I wonder. No, I think not. I would remember having a son. You are not of my blood. She tuttered once. Don't be foolish, boy. You're outmanned, outnumbered, and outgunned. Surrender. Naruto tilted his head. Is that what you think? Lisa shivered. You can talk. I could always talk. You just didn't listen. Masks! Fine, have it your own way. He stabbed his arms backwards into the dying Grimm, the faint spark of its soul already nearly gone. You want masks? I'll show you a mask. Mask! Deep inside him, a scarlet eye opened. Black tar flowed up his limbs. Copy. His shadow loomed large. What the hell is that thing? A line of blood ran down his nose. Naruto, it's nothing. I'm just not used to guiding this manning. Now get back. Let's see what you're capable of. The bird cawed once, then it took flight after them. Take the girl! The whispers were getting louder. Summer grit her teeth. Shut up! Ruby jolted in her lap. Mommy, did I... but I didn't say anything. Blast it all. She said that out loud. Not you, sweetie. Mommy's got a bit of a headache. End of chapter 8.